Well, good morning and welcome once again to Elevenses. It's show number 152. It's Wednesday, the 7th of July, and England are through to the semi-finals of the Euros, if you're the least bit interested in football. So I'll just start you off with a reminder that you can escape that tie with the Science of Being Seen at 8 p.m. tonight, if you're interested. In other news, Norton have declared the faulty V4 SS unfixable. The EU have agreed to drop green card requirements for UK riders and drivers crossing into Europe, which is good news. The DVSA are seeking to recruit over 300 examiners to help reduce the backlog of tests. Halfords are launching a petition to legalise all e-scooters as 3 more London boroughs join the trial. Suzuki have launched the 2021 GSX S750 at a budget price. Today's discussion point will be have Suzuki actually lost interest in motorcycles. So settle yourself down for the next 30 minutes or so as we take you through the latest news. We've got Sue, Clive and Terry all looking in. Clive says he's looking forward to the session tonight. So great. Yes, I hope you'll enjoy it. Don't forget, if you've got anything to add, comments, questions, I'll try and cover them during the show. If I can't do it during the show, I'll get back to you at the end. Feedback on the show is always useful. And of course, if there's anything you'd like me to talk about at any point, do drop me a line and I will try to do so at a point in the near future. So right on with the news and views. Well, as I said, the first thing to say is that you can escape tonight's footy if you want to by tuning into the Science of Being Seen. The link, if you want to follow it to the events, is there. It's just gone up on screen for you in the comments section. Just make sure you click the right one for tonight. If you are watching the football, then you can head along a month in the future. I'll be running these presentations probably once a month or maybe once every 2 months, but on the first Wednesday, I think. And Gillian says she'll be there as well. Excellent. Thank you, Gillian. Look forward to it. So, right. Okay. If you are the owner of one of Norton's V4 SSs, the news has gone from bad to worse. You may recall back in May, Norton sent a letter to everyone who'd purchased one of these bikes from the previous administration, listing a number of serious defects. Now, they found actually 35 things that were wrong with the bike, and 20 of those were what Norton, the new Norton owners, considered to be critical items. And the letter actually advised owners not to ride the machine until the faults were fixed. And they said that whilst they were under no legal obligation to help, the new Norton administration being a completely separate legal entity to the previous administration, which is in a receivership, the new company would work towards helping repair those machines. But unfortunately, there's some bad news. That hope has now been dashed as the new CEO of Norton, Robert Henschel, updated all V4 SS owners at the end of June by letter. And in essence, what the new statement says is that bikes are unrepairable. And basically, he says that's because Norton's unable to reliably source all the parts needed from the previous administration's suppliers. The letter goes on to say, however, that that Norton motorcycles are currently re-engineering their own version of the V4 SS. And the company stresses that that's not a continuation of the previous model. So where do you stand if you are actually one of the owners who took delivery of a V4 SS? Well, the letter actually says the legal responsibility for the defects remains with NMUL, that's the previous company, which is now in liquidation. You should have received a claim form from the liquidators of Norton Motors, NMUL, regarding this matter. Therefore, you may please be in touch with the liquidators of NMUL for settlement of your claim. So basically, the problem is it's not down to the new Norton company to sort it out. although they appear to have done their best. And there is some good news. The letter continues. Following the completion of the liquidation, we will offer you a new Norton V4 motorcycle as a gesture of goodwill at a special price, and it will come with a 2-year warranty that starts from the date of handover. Right, okay, no idea, of course, what the special price is, but as these bikes weren't cheap to start with, it's probably is going to be a fair amount of money. So it will all depend really on how much can be clawed back from the receivers. Right now, the new administration can't give a start date for production of the re-engineered V4 either. At the moment, they are working on a date sometime in the fourth quarter of 2021, though they are also saying it's not possible to be specific at this point in time. Presumably, they are still working to sort out the issues with the original design. Right, so Guy's also said good morning. Good morning, Guy. So, whichever side of the Brexit divide that you stand, when the UK left the EU on January the 1st this year, the return of the insurance green card was a step back to the days when motorcycling abroad was rather more difficult than it has been over the last number of years. And that's basically thanks to the need for some extra paperwork. Now, before January the 1st this year, any car insurance bought in the EU automatically covered you for all the other EU countries, as well as Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. So, unfortunately, with Brexit, that agreement lapsed, and there was no agreement, no reciprocal agreement in place when Brexit actually happened. So in other words, from the 1st of January, anybody leaving the UK, all UK drivers and riders, if you were headed for the EU, you should have applied to your insurer for what's known as a green card. Now this is actually literally, it used to be, I think it probably still is, a green piece of paper. It was a little green card booklet, which actually extends the cover. It confirms that you are covered for European riding. Now, naturally, of course, as soon as the green card was reintroduced, it brought more expense to riders, because although these green cards are technically free, insurers naturally find a way to charge for them. And what they did, of course, was they added an administration fee for sending one out. So even though it would be done by the press of a button, people being charged 25 quid typically for a green card. And the other problem is, although again, as I say, you can issue these things these days with a button press from a computer, there was a delay in getting them dispatched, and people were talking about a month waiting for their green card to arrive. The third problem with them is they also have a limited life, usually 90 days, but I have seen green cards which expire after just 30 days. So put it all together, and what you're having to do is actually possibly apply for multiple green cards over the course of a year if you're making multiple trips to Europe. And obviously that multiple extra expense too. Now, I dare say many younger riders who don't remember the old system have either been completely baffled by this requirement, or I dare say many have been completely unaware that they actually needed to carry one when they headed over the water during the breaks in COVID regulations. Now, the problem has been particularly pronounced in Northern Ireland, where, of course, many people now cross the border on a regular basis, either to work or, simply to do things like go shopping. There were around 12 million British drivers go to Europe in a normal year, but 43 million drivers are making that trip across the Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland border in the same time frame. Now, last year was obviously a slightly odd year for travel to the mainland, but people still needed to get across that Northern Ireland border. But the good news is that the rules around carrying the green card are set to be scrapped. Now, it's not going to happen straight away. The change needs to be written into something called the Official Journal of the European Union, which is basically the rule book. But that change is expected to take place by the end of this month. So if you've got a trip planned for the next few days, you will still need a valid green card to head to Europe. But hopefully, as of the end of the month, you can forget that and go back to just traveling on your own insurance. which is good news. Okay, so don't forget, you can set a reminder and catch Elevenses every Wednesday and Sunday at 11, normally live. If you miss it here on Facebook, you can of course catch up on Facebook, but the much easier way to catch up with an old show is actually to head over to my YouTube channel, which is Survival Skills UK. And as I always remind you, don't forget the important UK at the end of that, or you will get somebody showing you how to dig Boy Scouts out of horses' hooves and that kind of thing. Right, okay. Now, something that I talked about quite a lot during the various stages of lockdown has been the disruption to the training industry, not just motorcycles, but car training as well. And it's caused a major headache to people waiting to take tests. I know that bike schools, since they reopened, have been working flat out to update the expired CBTs. You'll remember the government refused to extend the expiry date on CBTs, even though there was nowhere people could actually go to get a new one. And of course, the schools have also been working flat out issuing new ones, because with the reduction in people travelling on public transport, more and more people are taking up travelling by scooter and small motorcycle. But they've also been struggling badly to get the two-part motorcycle test booked. Now, if you take a car test, basically you book a test, turn up, pass, and you get your license. With the motorcycle test, it's a two-stage affair. There is the off-road module 1 and there is the on-road module 2. And though they were supposed to be done back-to-back, that was the original plan, what the DVSA found was that quite a lot of the mod 2 slots were abandoned when riders failed mod 1. So they separated them, which made sense of a sort at the time. But one of the problems that training schools have, and I've been reading about this problem for weeks and weeks and weeks, is that test slots are available for mod 2, but no mod 1s. So training schools have got trainees trained up, ready to go, but they can't get the mod 1 test, which they need before they can take the mod 2 test. So mod 2 tests are being cancelled by the DVSA simply because there's no one to take them. So the question that people have been asking is, why couldn't the examiner switch from doing the mod 2 element to the round the cones test? I mean, it's the same examiner, it's not a different examiner, it's the same person. Another question that's been asked is that given the huge backlog in courses and which are awaiting tests, why couldn't the DVSA become a little bit more flexible when they're working and do some evening and weekend testing? Well, one answer to that, of course, is that the existing examiners have been working pretty much flat out and really don't want to do much in the way of overtime. I don't think they get paid a great deal extra for doing overtime. So flexibility has never really been the DVSA strong point in my experience, but I noticed there is actually a national recruitment campaign underway at the moment to recruit 300 car driving examiners to reduce test waiting times. And the advert for this actually says that these roles can offer part-time and flexible working hours, including evenings and weekend opportunities. Now, I'm not sure if any of these examiners will be testing motorcycles, possibly not, as I believe the motorcycle test sort of qualification is an add-on to the car test initial qualification. But as most motorcycle examiners are also car examiners, if they can fill out some of the car test slots with these new examiners, they may be able to release some of the motorcycle examiners to do more motorcycle testing, which would be a good thing. Now, right now, the DVSA say they have 78 recruits already under training or having training booked, and they are expected to be carrying out driving tests from early August. They have another 119 candidates who have had job offers made to them, and they hope that they will start changing soon. But there are still shortages in several parts of the country. So if you fancy a job as a driving examiner, London and the South East, East England and the East Midlands, South and Southwest England, the Manchester area and Wales, Cardiff are all places where there are vacancies. And the hotline to apply is open until 11:55 p.m. on Monday, the 26th of July. Here in London, a means of transport that doesn't require a test is, of course, the e-scooter, which the trials of these devices has been expanded as expected to cover 3 more boroughs. So you will be seeing e-scooters on the streets in City of London, Southwark, and in some parts of Lambeth. And that means that these new boroughs join Ealing, Hammersmith and Fulham, Kensington and Chelsea, Richmond, Tower Hamlets and Canary Wharf as locations where you can rent the e-scooters. And that doubles the number that are available across London to 1,200. Now, TfL also says that they are in discussion with London councils and other boroughs about further expansions. But interestingly, this hire plan has now come under fire from the major retailer Halfords. As you almost certainly know, they are a major car and bike specialist selling bicycles and car parts, but they also sell e-scooters. And they have more than 450 stores across the UK, and they sell these scooters with prices ranging from £90 up to £990, they say. And they have launched this petition to allow privately owned e-scooters onto public roads. And it says, join us in calling for an end to the road ban on privately owned electric scooters. Any new regulations should deliver safer roads and ensure that electric scooter road users behave responsibly and with due care and attention. And posters have gone up in shops urging customers to sign. Now, you probably know that under current regulations, privately owned e-scooters can only be used legally on private land, and they're banned from public roads and footpaths. But nevertheless, they have become an increasingly common sight over the last few years. Now, it's not without conflict, of course, with the legal side of things. And last month, the Met Police said they actually seized 507 privately owned e-scooters in just 7 days. So it sounds like they had a bit of a blitz on them. But it does also tell you how many of the things are actually in use. A Halfords spokesman said that e-scooters are permitted on roads in many European countries and in other parts of the world. We believe e-scooters can make a significant contribution to reducing congestion and making urban travel greener. Right, so where do I stand on that one? Well, I think the genie's out of the bottle, and I think it's going to be very hard to pop the cork back on this one. I think e-scooters are here to stay. I can't see them going away anytime soon. With anything like this, it's always a little bit of a craze, and maybe the initial buzz around the things will die away. But they undoubtedly do perform a sort of a moderately useful function for some people. You know, if you live a sort of a mile from the shops or something, you may want to get the car out, and you may not want to walk a mile each way carrying your shopping. But you know, if we wanted a loaf of bread or something, an e-scooter seems to me to be a quite sensible form of transport. And frankly, it's hard to see how it's legal to ride an electrically assisted e-bike, yet not an e-scooter. Now, there are all the questions about the stability, of course, of the e-scooters, but they have been addressed to the satisfaction of the boroughs across London and the other metropolitan areas in the UK. I think there are 40 schemes at the moment with design changes to make them more stable on the road. So I think that one's out the window. I know the e-bikes still have to be pedaled because they're not driven entirely by the electric motor. It's an assist rather than a power. But, quite honestly, that seems like a minor point compared with the lack of insurance that on bicycles of all sorts, or any kind of age restrictions. If you're using the e-scooters in the trials, they will be covered under the trial itself. The trial owner will basically pay for the insurance, but you do need a license, a driving license. You can't just jump on one of these things at 14 and scoot around to school on it. So there are questions to be asked. There's a sort of a problem of bringing the standards together, and there's also the problem, I think, with the trial schemes, that the costs are quite significant, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. And there are also real restrictions in where you can actually use them, because you have to pick them up and return them from specific bays. E-bikes have been abandoned left, right, and centre all over the place, so they're a pain in the neck. But they do at least give you flexibility. You can just simply ride one home and leave it outside your front door. You can't do that with an e-scooter. It has to go back to a particular bay. So unless you happen to be traveling from one bay to another, you have a bit of a problem there. But to me, I think the big issue is really the insurance one. Now, no doubt bringing in compulsory third-party insurance for cyclists would create a huge backlash in the pedaling community, but it is required elsewhere in the world, and it doesn't seem to impact the prevalence of cycling as a means of transport either. And if you brought it in for cycling, then it would be a relatively straightforward requirement to be transferred to the e-scooters too. So anyway, that's my take on the thing. You may or may not agree with me. I'd be interested in your comments, what you think about them. I know a lot of people hate them, so I will get back to you on that if I get any questions. Right, okay, Nick's just said that he hasn't got his ticket for this evening. Check your email, Nick. I did send you an email. I'll double check which email I sent it to and let you know later. As Paul's just said, do check your spam filter, but the invites have gone out. Right, okay, we've been a bit short of pictures today, so let's pop one up on the screen. Here we go. That's not the right picture. That's the one that I want. No, it's not. That was the previous one. We'll get there in the end. There it is. We finally got there. That is the brand new old GSX S750. It's the 2021 colour scheme, which I have to say I think is rather horrible, but there you go. It's described as peel brilliant white and champion yellow, with the black accents, of course. It's hardly a new model, despite the sort of muted fanfare from Suzuki, and effectively it's one of these bikes which has been around the block a bit. The model itself dates from 2015, and the engine in there is actually from the 2005 GSX-R 750, so it's over 15 years old. And it's an interesting point that the development of motorcycles has really stagnated in the last 10-15 years. When I bought my 404 Honda, that bike had been around. I bought it in 79. It was a year old. That was the last production year, I think was 1978, and the model was brand spanking new in 1975. If you go back sort of 15 years from 1975 and think about how long that bike might have been around, you'd be looking at 1960. And if you think about the development of motorcycles between 1960 and sort of my 404, it was enormous. So motorcycle development really has stagnated quite dramatically. Now, you won't be surprised to discover that that particular machine is powered by a 749 four-cylinder engine. The sports bike motor itself was retuned for mid-range torque and acceleration. They also changed the gearing, both at the rear sprocket and at the in top gear somewhat, to try to get more acceleration off the line, but also which basically makes it easier to pull away than a high revving sports bike, but also to maintain top speed. So, but it's still a pretty peaky bike. Peak power 113 horsepower, which is nothing to be sneezed at, is at 10,500. That'll be less than the GSX-R, but peak torque of 81 Newton meters. That's pretty chunky, but it's also quite high up the rev range. It's at 9,000 RPM. One of the places where you do notice the cutbacks to keep the price down, I'll talk about the price in just a moment, considering there's no bodywork on it, it's a pretty porky 213 kilograms, which, if my calculations are correct, is somewhere around about 270, 280 pounds. That's quite heavy for a naked 750. So it suggests that relatively little effort has been made to keep the frame and the wheels light, as they are two of the components which will have changed. It's unlikely the engine is much heavier. Another area where you will see some bit of cost cutting going on is you do get an LED tail light, but you don't get an LED headlight. It's still got a halogen, which must make it one of the very few new motorcycles with a halogen headlight. The electrical gizmos on the bike, they're cheap and easy to add. So you do get dual channel ABS and traction control, and you also get Suzuki's low RPM assist and their easy start system, which are both designed to help new riders do things like pull away. So what do you pay for this sparkling piece of new motorcycle? Well, actually, you'd be surprised. It's $7,999 in the UK, plus obviously on the road charges. So I have actually seen them already on sale for $7,299. So that is an on the road price, and that's a pretty remarkable price. To put that into context, the NC 750X, the base model, is about 7.5, and the DCT model list price is about 8.3, I think. So you're getting a bike with an extra 60-70 horsepower, and you're actually not spending any more money. So I have to say, from the point of view of budget motorcycling, using older components certainly has helped Suzuki keep the price down on here. But that brings me really to my sort of discussion point for the day. Have Suzuki actually given up with motorcycles? Well, if you look at the top 10 sales by manufacturer here in the UK for May, which is the last month I have figures for, you will find that Honda sold 2,392 motorcycles, Yamaha 1,717. Triumph were third with 1,133, helped out by their new Trident. BMW 1,009, largely due to the continuing sales of the GS. Kawasaki were on just over 800, KTM 650 odd, Lex Moto 400, Harley 400, Royal Enfield 400, helped by big sales of the 650 Twin, and Ducati were in 10th and last place with 388 sales in the month of May. Do you notice the name that is missing? We talk about the big four Japanese manufacturers, but Suzuki failed to match the sales of KTM, Lex Moto, and Royal Enfield. And it seems like it's a really long time since there was a top-selling Suzuki. You're probably going back to the days of the sports bike, actually, when the GSXR ranges topped the sales charts regularly. There was originally the GSXR 750 and the GSXR 1100. The 1100 became the 1000. 600 appeared as well, and they all sold like hotcakes, particularly in the 600 Super Sport range. But it's a fact that the sports bike sales have completely collapsed, and Suzuki seem to fail to hit the spot here in the UK with a bike that anybody wants to buy. Another bike I meant to mention was the GS 500. You know, that London was knee deep in those for a while, whilst they were used as courier bikes and commuter bikes, and of course training schools used them as well. There were thousands of GS 500s sold, which were used to launch people into their biking career. But if you have a look at what the Suzuki own, I've just got the other screen up, which they're with their bikes. There's the Hayabusa. There's the various versions of the GSXR 1000. There's the GSX S1000, which is basically the 1000 R with the bodywork cut back to sort of a more touring version. And then there's a big hole in their range. There's nothing in that sports bike range till you get down to the GSXR 125. And if you look at the road bikes, again, you've got the Katana, £11,500. I've not seen more than one of those on the road. We've just talked about the 750. There's also a sort of a naked 1000 and a brand new 950 S950, which is a sort of low powered version that you can ride on an A2 license, in a sort of vague attempt, I think, to fill that middleweight hole. And then having jumped from the 750, there are two versions of the SV 650 again, which are reasonably priced at sort of 6,500 and 7,000. But again, after that, you're back to a 125. And then you've got the V-Strom range. Again, a couple of big bikes. You've got the V-Strom 1050 in 3 versions. And then you've got the 650, 2 versions of that. The XT, which is the one I think with the wire wheels, if I remember correctly, and then there's the standard 650, but they're both £8,000, and there is nothing below those. So Suzuki really have got a big hole, I think, in the bikes that bring people forward from a 125 into the easy to ride sort of A2 license. People argue that the V-Strom's a nice enough bike. Well, it is, but I mean, it's been around decades, and I know some people love it. But I have to say that when I last rode one, which is quite a few years ago now, and it's barely changed since then, I wasn't exactly blown away by it. And the SV650, again, it's a nice enough motorcycle, but how long has that been around? It's archaic by modern standards. Yes, okay, it does the job, but there's nothing in Suzuki's range which really suggests that they are doing anything new. So how much longer will they actually make motorcycles, or are they just going to concentrate on selling scooters and low capacity motorcycles to developing countries? I really don't know. Right, okay, so that's pretty much it for today. Clive has just said that he says that the e-scooters are here to stay, so we need to deal with them. Yeah, I thoroughly agree on that one, Clive. Right, okay, so that's all from me for today. Don't forget the what was I going to say? I was going to say something else and I've completely forgotten again. I forgot to write it down. Never mind. So stay safe out there today. I hope to see some of you at the Science Being Seen this evening. I'll sort you out, Nick, and make sure that you know where you're going. Looking again on Sunday when we will have the next show. Right, and that takes me to the end of today. So thanks very much and see you soon. Bye for now.